Off to the other football results from Week 9. South Carroll held off FSK for a third straight win behind 150 rushing yards from Anthony Rodriguez and 3 field goals from Cannon Hunter. Speaking of kickers, Braden Fritz connected on the game-winning field goal to lift Man Valley past Williamsport. Kevin Poole rumbled for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Lions shutout against the rival Knights. Seth Jacobs ran for a score and threw for one as well in the win. Time for one last look at the Carroll County Athletic League football standings through the regular season. Westminster claims the county crown for the 4th time in 5 seasons, and Man Valley posts a winning overall record and shares 3rd place with Liberty and South Carroll. Winters Mill put together the best record in school history despite the Week 9 loss. The first round of the regional football playoffs features 2 intra-county games and 3 Carroll teams playing at home. It's Century at Liberty for the 2nd time in as many weeks, and Westminster hosting Man Valley, plus South Carroll at home against Williamsport. We'll bring you the action from all 3 games by way of a CMSportsNet playoff highlights show on Friday at 10 p.m. Join me and Wintersville coach Matt Miller as we dissect the playoff games and look ahead to the next round of the football postseason. Let's get a quick look now at the upcoming schedule for Week 10. Like I said, 3 home games taking place around the county, and Francis Scott Key heads to Middletown for their first round playoff game. 2 of the 3 games inside the county are rematches from earlier in the fall, and the Liberty Century game took place last week. Bracket time now. Coach Miller's Falcons are the top seed in 2A, 1A West, and they received a first-round bye. Wintersville gets South Carroll or Williamsport next week at home. The Falcons have wins over each of those teams already this season. The Cavaliers are 3-0 against the Wildcats all time and beat them in the 2021 playoffs en route to the 2A, 1A state final. Liberty and Century played in back-to-back weeks in the 2008 season, and the Knights won both of those games amid a run to the state semifinals. Francis Scott Key faces Middletown for the first time since 2006, but the Knights own the all-time series 25-7 back when they played annually in the old Monocacy Valley Athletic League. All right, time to look at some stats in each of our featured matchups. First up, it's Century and Liberty. Like I said, the Lions and Knights met last week at Liberty High, and the home team cruised to victory. Century averages 6.2 points per game compared to Liberty's 22.4. Players to watch now from that matchup: one of the top running backs in the county and one of the top receivers when Trey Helmick leads Century into battle against Tristan West and Liberty. West leads the county in receiving yards, and he's averaging more than 25 yards a catch. Helmick's stats are reflected through Week 8 of the regular season, but he still stands as one of the top backs in the county. Williamsport visits Parker Field on Friday, so let's check out that matchup. The Cavaliers have their offense going now after a tough start to the season. The Wildcats come into this game trying to snap a 5-game losing streak. The Cavaliers have a good tandem going on offense as they get set to host Williamsport. A couple of players to watch on their side. Quarterback Caleb Evans has gone past 1,200 passing yards, and Anthony Rodriguez didn't start the season as the team's primary back, but he's up to 500 yards on the ground with 6 total touchdowns. Okay, let's talk about the other county versus county matchup, and we'll start with Manchester Valley. The Mavericks held Westminster to its lowest output of the season when the rivals met in Week 5. The Owls won 19-7. Isaiah Farabee is second in the county in rushing yards, and James Herndon leads all county receivers in catches. Over to Westminster now. The Owls enter the playoffs on a 7-game winning streak after claiming the county title last week against Winters Mill. Kyrese Walker has more than 1,000 yards passing to go with more than 1,000 yards rushing for a 2nd straight season. Linebacker Casey Heisig leads the county in tackles, and Josser Donald leads the CCAL in sacks. Let's look at the team stats for this matchup. The Owls possess the top offense in the county at better than 30 points per game, and their defense has allowed just 16 points per game. Man Valley has won 3 of its last 4, and the Mavericks scored 18.8 points per game during that stretch. All right, time to showcase 2 players in the Mavs-Owls matchup. Nick Lopredo leads this team in tackles, and he's got 3 sacks and a fumble recovery this season. We've already mentioned Casey Heisig, who had 10 tackles last week and caught a touchdown pass out of the backfield. All right, let's see the 3A West football playoff bracket, with Oakdale and Linganore as the top 2 seeds heading into the first round. Westminster leads the all-time series against Man Valley 10-2, and the Owls have won 7 straight against the Mavericks. The winner of Friday night's game is likely to face number 2 seed Linganore in the next round. Now it's time for our Coach's Corner, and we're going to focus on the Manchester Valley-Westminster matchup. So let's hear from Mavs coach Bernie Kuntz, whose team is trying to beat the Owls for the first time since 2014. Coach, how important was getting a win in the last week? How important was it to get confidence as you go into the playoffs now that everybody's 0-0 and it's one and done? Getting a win in week 9, big deal for you guys?
Yeah, definitely. Got us above 500. Getting that 5th win was important. We had left a couple slip away earlier in the year that we felt we had opportunities at, so it was important to get that win going into the playoffs. We're getting healthier, so that's a bright side of things of going forward. I've been dinged up throughout, but we're getting a lot of kids back, and some of the kids are starting to play well and come into their own, so it was big to get a win and get their confidence up.
Everybody makes the playoffs, but you obviously don't know who you're going to get until the cards kind of fall as they may, chips fall as they may. You get Westminster in the first round here. Familiar opponent, just played them a few weeks ago. How much do you lean on that game going into this time or second time around?
Well, I think having some familiarity, is definitely, key. Kids know each other a little bit more than having somebody, if we were to go to Sherwood or Linganore or somewhere of that nature, they wouldn't really have the familiarity, so we'd have to do a little bit more research and things. But having some familiarity makes it game planning a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, especially when they don't finalize things till Monday and trying to prepare over the weekend and things. But, definitely good, and I think it'll be good for the county to have an in-county game, with the two of us, and it should be a pretty good atmosphere on a Friday night.
That being said, do the kids gain some confidence knowing that they, competed against Westminster during the season? Like you said, you had some close games along the way. That one was a close, low-scoring game. Does that give them a little bit of boost, so knowing that, hey, we can compete with these guys and hopefully turn it around this time around?
Well, I don't know if it's confidence, but I think having the familiarity, knowing Westminster, having a little bit of a rivalry with them, gives the kids a little bit more incentive to work as opposed to playing somebody you're not quite as familiar as. I mean, obviously, Sherwood, Linganore, Oakdale have reputation, but that's all you might know about them as opposed to, growing up a little bit closer to them, having a little bit more incentive and things like that. So probably a little bit more motivation playing an in-county team than it would be an out-of-county team that you're not as familiar with.
Thanks to Coach Bernie Kuntz for his time, and now over to Westminster. Let's hear from Coach Chris Basler as the Owls get set to face a familiar foe for the second time this season. Coach, last week, county championship game, Winners Mill, packed house. I know you talked to me a lot about playing a complete game. Was that about as close as you've gotten so far in terms of now you've had a week to let it sink in? How pleased were you with how they performed last week?
I mean, anytime you win, you're happy. Winning's hard, and to do it consistently is extremely hard. But I think that was about as close as we've been to, not starting slow and getting off to a good start and playing consistently through the end. Another
opponent well coming up this week in the playoffs, Manchester Valley. Two schools of thought there. Do you like being able to know the opponent pretty well, or does it make it a little tougher because they're playing you for a second time?
But I think it definitely makes it tougher playing this. Anytime to beat anybody twice in a year is difficult.
Yeah.
And Coach Kuntz and his staff does a good job, and they've kind of peaking at the right time here at the end too. And I expect it to be a big challenge and one that we're going to have to really get up for.
I think during the season they held you to your the lowest amount of points in that game back in the middle of the season. What are some of the things that you have to do to get a win against them for a second time?
I mean, we're first and foremost we're going to have to play good defense. We're going to have to tackle. They got that big, strong offensive line, and we're going to have to do a good job of competing at the line of scrimmage. And their receiver number 3 has made a lot of plays, and it's tough when you have to do a good job defending the run and make sure you have enough bodies back to cover him. So, and on offensively, we just need to continue to not shoot ourselves in the foot with penalties. I think that was a big difference last week. We played a pretty clean game and probably had our most complete game offensively.
Last week was a big atmosphere. It's going to be, obviously another one this week, I'm assuming, in playoffs. Do the kids understand, everybody goes now, but it's a whole different season now in week 10. Do you have to tell them much about, hey, now we're one and done. We got to play good football the rest of the way, and the atmosphere changes, and every play is a little more scrutinized. Do the kids get a sense of that right now, you think?
I mean, I think we've had a sense of that the last couple weeks. Winning the county was definitely a big goal of ours, and we knew that made Liberty and the Winners Mill game basically a playoff game for us. So I think we've kind of been in that mode anyway. And, every week we're striving to play our best game. So, we're really just trying to focus on that.
Thanks, Coach. We'll be seeing the highlights from that game Friday night, along with highlights from Century at Liberty and Williamsport at South Carroll. It's all coming up this Friday at 10 p.m. on the CMSportsNet Football Playoff Highlight Show. Join me and Winners Milk coach Matt Miller for a look at some of Carroll's football teams in postseason action. We're looking forward to it. Want more local sports coverage? Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel.